Although movement is highly slept on, it's one of those critical skills you need to master if you want to make some noise in the Fortnite scene. Today, we'll be showing you everything you need to know to perfect your movement on both controller and keyboard and mouse. We're gonna have dedicated sections for each input later on, but make sure you watch the entire video so you don't miss out on what we have in store for you later. What you just saw from the pro keyboard player Nash was an extremely clean side jump direction change. He makes a side jump from the right like anyone else would, except he strafes backwards after placing his ramp to head in the other direction. This completely throws the opponent off and leads to a clean kill for Nash. That right there was a flawless reverse triple edit from the pro controller player G-Money. He ramps outwards like he would for any triple edit, but he turns around midway through, places 2 walls for protection, and edits on the opponent for an easy 1 pump. To pull this move off, start by placing a cone and floor at the end of your ramp. Next, make a single tile double edit with the back left tiles of your floor and cone. As you confirm the edit, turn around 180 degrees to place a wall. From here, simply jump up and edit through your wall and you're done. One way you can check out how clean your movement is by trying out some sideways running drills. At the very least, you should be able to enter a full sprint while turbo building a series of walls in one direction. By default, controller players should be able to do this naturally since the joystick uses 360-degree movement technology. Now for keyboard and mouse players, you're gonna need to be using double movement settings to pull this off. If you're on keyboard and mouse and you still aren't using double movement, you are holding yourself back an insane amount. But we'll get more into that in our keyboard and mouse section towards the end of our video. Once you feel comfortable turbo building your walls while sprinting from both directions, try adding in some other building pieces. You can add a floor to the top of each wall for a half protected tarp, and you can add ramps below your feet to practice engaging in piece control plays. If your binds are fully functional, you should have no problem doing either of these drills. Now, it may take some time to get the build placement timing down, but you won't physically be held back from doing it. A player with solid movement should be able to free build and edit course their way towards their opponent without experiencing any stalls in their movement. Any minor slowdown could very well give your opponent just enough time to read your play and make their way towards safety. Just look at this clip of Nash 1v1 build fighting. Throughout the entirety of this round, he keeps himself fully protected with his builds, and he hits every edit just in time to keep his momentum going. If he slipped up at any point in this sequence, there is no shot he could have made that double edit down successfully. Look, we're not saying that your mechanics need to be on the same level as Nash's in order to maintain solid movement, but staying consistent with your edits and build placements will help keep your momentum going towards your opponent, and in turn will increase your chances of securing the kill. One way you can stay consistent while editing is by using your movement to give yourself additional time in between each edit. For example, instead of sprinting in a straight line as you triple edit, strafe to your left and right before each floor edit. Although you're technically increasing the time between each edit, you'll be able to stay consistent all the way through. That's much better than going lightning fast and getting your head caught on your cone every time.
Press that shit good, press that shit good.
Scrubs, you're all weak as fuck.
Oh my god! Did that look familiar to anyone? That clip was from the now retired TSM Scrubs and is still considered to be one of the best in-game clips of all time. Did you notice how he strafes to the far left before most of his triple edits? Since he's a high ping player, these movements give him just enough time to complete each edit and continue his way forward. If you're looking for a creative map to grind your movement out on, Raiders 464's Mechanics Training Map V3 has some drills that will take your movement to the next level. However, the one we want you to prioritize is the Piece Control X Peak Training Drill. After selecting your difficulty level, you'll be sent through a series of 30 randomized piece control scenarios. Now, they might look like your average piece control map, but there is a catch. After being exposed to the bot's field of view, you'll begin to take damage. The normal mode will deal damage after 200 milliseconds, and the hard mode will deal damage after 150 milliseconds. 50 milliseconds might not sound like anything significant, but you'll change your mind once you actually give it a shot. Trust me, the reason this drill works so well for improving your movement is that it forces you to take quick right-handed peeks every time you take a shot. If you haven't already noticed, movement is crucial when setting up shots and applying piece control. Piece control strategies and edit plays that you'd regularly use in-game will quickly reveal their flaws after only a few minutes in this map. Of course, your typical opponent in an arenas match won't be able to instantly deal damage every time you enter their line of sight like these cracked AI bots can, but it really opens your eyes to how much you're exposing yourself when playing. If you're serious about improving, head on over to ProGuides.com where you can access all of our courses and bootcamp content for just $7.99. And if personalized coaching is more your speed, you'll get 10% off any session with any of our pros. As with any other piece control map, there isn't one specific way to approach each scenario. Your goal should simply be to limit the total damage you take as you make your way through the drill while still being creative. Try out some new angles and don't be afraid to put your mechanics to the test. We want you guys to look like Peterbot edit coursing an opponent in arena by the time you're done here. Okay, maybe not that cracked, but if you want to learn how Peterbot W keys his way through each lobby, go ahead and check out our How to W Key Like the Pros video here on the channel. Alright Fortnite fam, it's time for the question of the day. Which pro player would you say has the cleanest movement in Chapter 4? For us at ProGuides, gotta hand it to Nash or Donnie. Steering back towards creative maps, Raiders 464's 1v1 aim trainer, more commonly known as aim duels, offers solid practice for both aim and movement. Now, you may be confused as to why we're recommending an aim training map in a movement guide, but what many people fail to realize is that one of the most important aspects of movement comes when you're face-to-face with an opponent, and this map lets you practice just that. With a friend or a randomly queued opponent, battle it out in a handful of different drills. Any drill where you're not ADSing is great, but we'd recommend focusing on the classic aim duel variations. While you're playing these, do your best to strafe around your opponent's shots while still being accurate with your own. Your movement has a much greater effect on your aim than you would think. This section is going to be dedicated to those of you on the sticks. If you're a controller player, you'll likely already know you're starting with an advantage to keyboard and mouse players when it comes to movement. As I mentioned earlier, joysticks use full 360-degree technology. This means that a slight variation in where you move your joystick will present itself in-game. This allows you to be much more precise with micro movements, and it feels a heck of a lot smoother than the default 8-directional keyboard system. The only thing you need to worry about is making sure your binds aren't requiring you to take your thumb off your joysticks. Now, this will completely stall your movement and make common build moves like 90s near impossible. Since optimal binds for a controller player are fairly limited, there are a couple of things you can try to keep your thumbs stagnant. First off, you can use a controller with paddles. Since your binds are being hit with your ring and middle fingers, your thumbs can stay on your joysticks at all times. Or you could take the cheaper and sometimes painful route of learning the claw grip. You can get super cracked on both paddles and claw, but we'd recommend trying out paddles to save your hands in the long term. Alright, now it's time for our keyboard-specific advice. Now, if you skipped straight here from the timestamp, yes, you, please go back and watch what you missed. First things first, you need to make sure you're using double movement settings. Whether you prefer the in-game settings or a third-party program like Keys2X, having these settings enabled will make your movement nearly identical to if you were using a controller. Play around with different strafing angles and see what feels best for you. There is not one setting that is better than the other. It really just comes down to how sharp of a strafing angle you'll feel comfortable with. Just make sure not to raise it too high or you'll find yourself doing that awkward trot every time you turn. Outside of using double movement, your key binds hold a ton of weight when it comes to your movement potential. Any bind you have that requires one of your 3 main movement fingers will force you to temporarily stall your movement every time you hit it. If you need a refresher on what optimal keyboard and mouse settings look like, go ahead and check out our Chapter 4 keyboard and mouse settings guide here on the channel. If you found this movement guide helpful, don't be afraid to leave a like and drop a comment on what you'd like to see next. Also, make sure you've subscribed with post notifications turned on so you never miss another one of our videos.